Grateful to gather together this night to discuss a further case study and to take this opportunity to work together as a team and better educate ourselves and learn alternate solutions to various problems that will help us in our future careers. Father, we pray that thy Spirit will be with us this night, and also those members of the team who aren't here, that they'll be able to arrive safely and be able to enjoy the meeting as well. We ask these favors and blessings now and do so in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, and just to go over the case quickly, has anyone had time to read it yet?
I've read it and marked it, but I haven't written.
I've read the whole thing. I was just actually finishing the last page. Or not the last, well, the last page where it kind of like gives you numbers about the seats. I was trying to make sense of it on the page.
I got you. Well, just to summarize again, it says the coach of the Army crew at the United States Military Academy at West Point faced a dilemma about how to foster team performance. At the start of the crew season, he had used objective data on individual performance to select his top 8 rowers for the varsity crew and the second tier of 8 rowers for the junior varsity crew. When the two crews raced one another at practice, however, the junior varsity crew beat the varsity crew about 2/3 of the time. This case follows the coach's attempts to determine the causes of these aberrant results, and by the end of the season, the varsity was still mired in a downward spiral with only 1 week to go before the season-ending nationals race. The coach must decide what action to take to help the varsity crew's members pull together to reach their potential as a team. So, going off of that, my first question is, what are the real issues here that we have to address? Because this team is a mess.
Well, what I came across in the reading was that it's not skill that's the issue. It's the lack of, I use the term camaraderie, but the varsity team is too busy trying to point out who's wrong than to take the time to find the right. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I use the term synergy.
Good
not
word.
sure where I pulled that word earlier this morning, but
It's a good word.
It's we have a team that's they're upset, but they don't seem to be willing to really work through their issues and unify.
I'd say that routes it out pretty well.
I think you guys are right. Like out of both teams, the varsity in every level or in every aspect, they perform better, but like as a whole or individually, but then as a whole, they would kind of like wouldn't do as good as the junior varsity, and the junior varsity who underperformed individually, they did better as a team. I think like maybe they were able to work together better and get like you said, I don't remember the word that you used, but that was a good word to work together. Synchronize, is that what you have?
Synergy.
It's just like that's something that the varsity both was missing. It seems like they were constantly focusing on each other's weaknesses instead of focusing on the team's strength and moving forward.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
I put a lot of responsibility on the coach though, because just the way that he came up with the selection process, primarily using the objective strength and stamina test, I think he kind of set the team up for failure in that if you think you're being chosen because you have the most strength or the most stamina, that's going to kind of give you a little bit of an ego. And by having that be the pretty much the only criteria, all of a sudden he's got the 8 people with the biggest ego on the team, and I don't think that'll work for the team. So I blame the coach for using that. I don't know if he's used it in the past. It really didn't say, but it's possible that he's used that in the past and it's worked. And I think from an organizational dynamic, that happens. Something you've used in the past works, but then all of a sudden, because the dynamics have changed, maybe it's just because those particular 8 athletes are all kind of egotistical or just don't know how to work well as a team. The dynamic changes, and the coach took way too long to recognize it and try to address it.
That was something kind of concerning to me. Is that here we are working down, or here he is working down to the wire. One team is completely ready to go. The other team is still they are squabbling amongst themselves, and they even rejected some of the psychology help they were getting earlier to try to unify. So I definitely think there's some leadership issues going on that's keeping this team.
Adding to your comment that you just said, leadership. Have you guys ever heard the terminology of like too many? I can't remember how it goes. Too many
chiefs and not enough Indians.
Enough Indians, yeah.
That
to me, that I feel like maybe that's what's going on in the varsity team. There's too many chiefs, and then the other one, there's like they're used to losing. They obviously didn't make it to the varsity teams. They're like, whatever, let's just do the best we can. We don't have nothing to lose. We already lost our ego. We didn't make it to the varsity team. I don't know.
What I thought was interesting in the reading is at one point, kind of there towards the end, he admits, and it directly relates to one of the final questions as to what his options are as a coach. But he says right in there that the varsity team is slowing down. The JV team is not getting any better. The varsity team just seems to keep getting worse, and that makes me think that, yeah, the coach waited too long. I think you're dead on with that one, Norm. But I think that part of it is morale. They keep losing to that JV team over and over and over again, and they're not willing to step up and say, we need to make this better. They're too busy living in that you're all doing it wrong theory.
Yeah.
I think the morale is just killing them.
Yeah, one thing that, from a coach's standpoint, is when they were doing the psychological stuff, I'm looking for the part that says that what some of the varsity.
Didn't they call it too touchy-feely or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, from a leadership standpoint, you can't have the troops dictating what's being done. You can't tolerate somebody that's sabotaging your program. So if you're in some team building exercises or whatever it is, and people are just goofing off or whatever, boom, they're off the varsity.
I'm almost wondering what would have happened if he would have been rotating the junior varsity and the varsity members amongst each other during practices. Because it seems like the varsity members really need to see a different mindset.
I think part of the practice with something like this, I think you really have to grow together and practice as a team. I think rotating people around defeats the purpose there.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
If you've got a guy in front of you that's maybe just a tenth of a second off, and he just can't get it, but everybody else can adjust. If you're adjusting, to the best of your ability, I think you can overcome those, deficiencies with the team member as long as they're not too bad. But everybody has to work together.
So we should send them to Minnesota with 14 items.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what I was thinking of the entire time here, is like, what better way to get them to work together than put them in a situation where they need to work together?
To survive.
Right.
And I think that's where the coach is lacking.
I mean, there's a lot of team building and trust building exercises that whether it's business teams, corporate teams or sports teams, there's lots of things that they can do to do that. I mean, there's consultants that'll come in and do a whole week-long retreat for team building and trust building because if you haven't read The Speed of Trust, most people are kind of oblivious to stuff like that. So I don't know if that's what Stephen M.R. Covey's company does, but it sounds like that's kind of what they do as consulting, is they go into corporate teams and they teach them the principles, they get them to buy into the principles, and then they do activities that help build that trust, and can do it in a relatively quick period of time, it sounds like, from the title of his book. So I think that could be really key, next year. Most of my recommendations, I said it's too late for this year.
It's kind of where I was at too. The team is too far gone, and that's why I kind of feel like even putting the bumping the JV up isn't going to do them any better, because they're not any better. So I think the team. I think the only thing he can do now is try to improve the players' ability to work together for their future growth. I don't think they're going to win any cups.
Yeah. I think he just got blinded by their potential. He can see their potential, and he's like so focused on it, like thinking that they can do so well. They just need to work together. And he is right, because they do perform better than the other team, but it just can't make them,
See, that is where I get a little confused, because on paper, and through all the testing, these 8 varsity members are the strongest members of his crew. So with that in mind, on paper he should have the best rowing team out there, but obviously he is missing some other points here. So what should he be doing then to also better assess these members when he's trying to create his varsity team for the next round?
I think Norman said it perfect. That is, he's got to include, the psychology aspect early on. It's not something he can just all of a sudden add in when he identifies a problem. It's clear that it needs to be a part of the core teaching from the get-go.
And so it's a lot of figuring out which teams are who's mentally adept at from the start, and then go from there with the strength.
I don't even know if it needs to be that direction. I mean, you could still find your eight strongest people physically, and I mean, you could quickly determine how they work together as a team. I mean, he knew the minute they came back from that preseason thing that they were having problems the minute they got back. And that would have been the time to sit down and say, okay, I still understand that physically, on paper, you guys are my best players, but in your head, you're not, and that's what we're going to focus on. I could care less about how many times you do push-ups in the gym. I'm more concerned with how are you viewing the guy sitting in front of you and behind you.
And it did say, that psychologically was like, like their techniques were, strength and endurance, and psychologically, like based on the surveys, that was the key for for performing better among the coaches that had been doing it for the longest, so he should have known that.
And I do think we do know that, but at the same time, we also do still have a week left before the finals. So that's 7 days to get these team members to open up and talk to each other beyond the whole the blowout that we saw at the end of the case study where they're going, I'm carrying the weight of the team.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me, when people are blowing up like that, they have some other underlying issues that need to be addressed. And I feel maybe bringing them together during this week before he tries to switch the junior varsity and varsity teams, maybe we can try to get this team patched together and address some of the issues that they may have with each other.
Do you feel that that's going to make them a contender in the competition, or are you just saying that from a standpoint of you guys need to work together just for life and purposes in general?
I think both to an extent, because right now this team is not functional. They need, and from the solutions we've got, it's like the coach has got to get them ready. So obviously, getting a team working together now will help them better be able to respond towards working with other teams in the future. And I just lost my train of thought. Bear with me here.
Let me ask you a question then. Maybe it'll get you back on your train of thought. I understand you're saying that the coach has to do something, but he's already tried having them email each other. He's had them try complaining to him. He's had the meeting. What specifically do you think he could do that would turn it around to where they would work together as a team?
Well, didn't all 8 of them end up saying they felt like they were carrying the team when they were rowing?
Basically, I don't know if it came from all 8. It was enough.
I think, and this has helped me get back on track, maybe that he should be addressing to each of them, okay, well, why do you feel you're carrying the team? Because none of them are really explaining why they feel that. And I think if they can start to get these underlying issues out onto the floor for each other to assess, that may be able to give them a better way of looking at each other. Probably not so much in a negative light, but more in that kind of light of, oh, this is what we need to do as a team to come together.
But what if it's each of them individually that's the problem, not the other people?
I don't quite follow you there.
Well, somebody may be saying, well, it's the person in seat 6, they're not pulling their weight. Well, how do you know they're not pulling their weight? Are their muscles not bulging? I don't think the people in the boat, maybe you can tell the person beside, in front of you or behind you. Maybe you can tell that 3 seats away. I don't think you can tell. So I just kind of think, I don't think that that's a valid point that people are making, that it's somebody else. I think that's just an excuse for losing. They're not able to say to themselves, well, I'm strong, but, I kind of lose my motivation towards the end because I think somebody's not pulling on their oar as hard as I'm pulling on the oar, so I don't feel like pulling as hard on my oar. And if everybody's thinking that, if you keep pointing fingers, nobody's going to say, I don't care if I'm the hardest pulling person, I'm going to pull hard for the whole 2,000 meters. I don't think they have 8 people on that boat that have that attitude.
Do you guys think maybe as individuals they're all like doing their best, but maybe they're just not in sync with each other?
Yeah, I think you've nailed that. I don't. I think it has more to do. I mean, what they were saying, as far as the competition and understanding the game itself, it's you could pull as hard as you absolutely want to. That does not make your boat a better boat. You have to understand and compensate for one another. If you're pulling your hardest, you can actually be slowing the team down. So if they're of the mindset, well, I'm doing all the work, well, if you feel you're doing all the work, you're actually hurting the team. If you're not, perfectly in sync with everyone on the team, basically meaning that if you really feel that you're pulling harder than the guy next to you, it's your responsibility to pull less. That's the only way the team actually functions, if I'm understanding it right. So to have that mentality that, oh yeah, I'm doing all the work, well, the minute you said that, you're hurting the boat.
And I think that's kind of where the coach having them bring out those reasons of why they feel that could help, because then the coach can, hopefully he's smart enough to do this, but bring out the feeling of, okay, well, during this meeting, all I've noticed each of you say is I, me, I'm doing better than them, this and that, to when not once is he hearing them go as we, us. There's no unification, and I think that needs to be. I think they need to hear that, because it doesn't. From the reading, it doesn't sound like they've ever been told that they don't sound unified.
Now,
Yeah.
on the both teams, that coxswain, do they both have a coxswain?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have what?
A coxswain?
He's kind of the lead on the boat that
Yeah.
is
Oh,
supposed to help the team work together.
He's the guy that sits at the back and yells, pull, 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 or whatever, gets him going.
Gets the rhythm and everything.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he notices anything. They didn't say, like. And I wonder if Jim is the one that's the coxswain, because he was the one mentioning names.
That's a good point. Well, what position? I don't think we knew what position he was, did we?
I didn't say, or not that I saw.
One of my solutions was to take a bunch of the indoor rowing machines and sync them all up, line them all up, have the coxswain, just kind of like set up a training room that looks just like, the boat setup, but with all these machines connected together. And then if they don't have a program, you could have a program written that's able to analyze who's pulling at what time and how hard. And so then the coaches would just have the whole team, get on the rowing machines, and the coxswain would, they'd simulate, start of a race or whatever, and so he would lead them, but the coaches would be able to then go look at the data and be able to see that, okay, on stroke 68, we had seats 3 and seat 6 pulling a little bit harder. And they'd be able to see some patterns to where seat 3 and seat 6 maybe are pulling too hard, or seats 2 and 4 are pulling too soon, that type of thing. And so then, instead of having everybody pointing fingers, the coach could sit down with seats 2 and 4 and say, we need to work on your timing, and then do timing exercises or whatever they do. And with seats 3 and 6, they could say, you're pulling really strong, but maybe a little too strong, and then have them work on those erg machines to where they could see whether they're pulling, however they measure it, in pounds or whatever. In the race, they're pulling like 65 pounds, but they need to be able to practice so that they can consistently pull 60 pounds. So I think he could use technology and that, and I think that would really help the team, because then it would be the coaches working with individuals, and if you get everybody kind of synced up individually, then put them out on the water. The guy that was pulling too hard, he knows just how much muscles to use to pull 60 instead of 65. And the guy with the timing, he knows that he can count in his head or listen to the coxswain and do the rhythm, like he's practiced. I think they spent way too much time, lifting weights. Lifting weights, that builds up your muscles, but it doesn't make you a better rower, a better teammate, or anything.
I kind of agree with that. I think it would also help you, like if the machine was all put together, like in sync with one another, they could all feel like the pattern too of how hard and how fast it's going. If it's like pulling your hands, you're going too slow, or if it seems too slow, you're going too fast for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Got my vote.
Do we want to kind of take a vote for what he should do?
Well, I kind of just found out what happened when I Googled it. Should I share?
No, that's supposed to be at the end. It's number 5.
We'll save that for a little bit then.
Let me share something.
Now you gotta spill the beans. We all want to know now.
You may have to email him, because I don't think Norm wants to know, because it impacts his thought pattern.
No, I've just about got mine written up, so that's fine. But I want to save it to the end. One thing that I wanted to share, because as we were talking about it, I kind of thought about it. We had a general authority was talking about how I'm kind of going. Who's the leader here?
For the meeting tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Me.
you, Paul.
Okay. Are we okay going to implication to other teams?
Sure, let's go to that.
Okay. All right, because one of them is gospel links. How does this apply to teams in the gospel? And our area authority shared the video of, I think it was Boyd K. Packer, and I pulled it up here. Let me see.
Go sleep, go sleep.
Yeah, it was Boyd K. Packer. Have you guys listened to, I think it was a conference talk that talked about equally yoked together?
That rings a bell.
Let me see if I can share it, because I found the video. It's like 4 minutes long. So let me
I have it all done.
go to screen sharing.
No? Not time to.
Okay, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the big thing is, will we be able to hear it? So let me try it.
Zeros then?
I hear nothing.
I don't hear nothing either.
Yeah, I don't either. For some reason, I don't think the sound. Let me see. Okay, here we go.
There were beautiful teams of Holstein, Red Durham Cross, and the familiar Blue Durham.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll play it then.
I'm not getting much.
Right.
The area authority used this as an example of how members and missionaries need to work together.
I wasn't that able to hear anything. It was like real glitchy. Like I didn't hear nothing.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
We can Google it though. I mean, we'll
So
find it.
what's the name of the video?
Equally yoked together, Boyd K. Packer.
Even though I didn't hear much, I did get some ideas from that video. Partly because I do think this team can still be salvaged, but I'm the kind I don't like to just leave a project half finished. So that's why I kind of want to do things here. I noticed the ox there. When they're yoked together, they have no choice but to work together. So maybe in their training, create some type of yoke that puts them together where they all have to row at the same pace.
I
don't know if they make something like that.
It mentioned, you've seen those people that they like put this thing over their shoulders, and then there's like three dummies in front of them and three dummies behind them, and they're all like you like work them with your arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It said that when a good crew team is working together, it looks like they're all attached with rods. Their arms and hands and everything moves in the same motion. I don't know from a practical standpoint if you could like put them all like in these gloves that go up to your elbows, and each elbow goes to the hand of the glove in front of you or something like that. But yeah, I don't know if there's any training. That might just be so clumsy it just really wouldn't help.
Well, clumsy until they're all rowing at the same pace.
Yeah, maybe.
But I do see the the gospel significance of this, because in the church, all of our leadership, they are a team, and without any of them there, they kind of fall apart. I mean, how often have we seen one of the Sunday school leaders not be there for church, and then everyone's scrambling to get a substitute at the last minute?
That's true.
Yep.
But that's one of those, when you function as a team, and basically let the spirit guide everything, and everyone's doing their jobs, things tend to work and not fail. I'd even include that in the family structure. How husband and wife are a team, trying to keep everything going. Sorry, this is a bad night for me. I'm continuously losing my thoughts here.
We'll forgive you.
Thank you. But overall, I think it's the big takeaway from this lesson is love it or hate it. When you're in a team, you've got to find a way to make it work.
Right. So what was everybody's solution? There were like 3 solutions, kind of. So who was in favor of switching the varsity and junior varsity boats? I was kind of. My solution was, since they only have 4 days left, and I don't think you're going to train this varsity team. I don't think there's anything the coach can say or do that will get them to work as a team. I think everybody just has to sacrifice their own personal ego and just say, I'm just going to work as a team, and we're going to use this next 4 days to do it. And the incentive that I would use for them would tell them, look, we've tried the psychological things. You guys didn't like that. You have the JV team you can look at, see how they're working as a team. We're going to let you guys figure out how to work as a team because you have the talent, and you're going to have 4 days to do it. Over the next 4 days, you're going to race against the JV team, and whoever wins the most races in the next 4 days is going to be the varsity team for the championships. And then if they get it together, great. If they don't get it together, then I think the best chance of the school doing reasonably well will be to have the best team represented as the varsity. So that was my solution, was give them some incentive to work together as a team. Maybe they all felt, hey, I'm on varsity, I'll get my letter, I'll get whatever recognition, and whether we work as a team or not. So this would give them some incentive that, hey, I can either finish as a JV, or I can, drop my ego and work together as a team and, see how we do at the national championships.
So Norman, do you think, you kind of added a whole different element there for me, do you think that part of this case study also relates beyond the boat, beyond the coach, beyond the students? I mean, you mentioned that if push comes to shove, if the varsity guys can't get it together, let the JV team race. Do you think it's important to include that element as far as, I mean, this class is organizational effectiveness, right? Is that important for the school? Even if the JV team is actually not a competitive team at that level, because we already know that they're not getting faster, the other team's just getting slower, which means that the varsity team, who should be the stronger team, can't compete at their own level. The JV team is not actually getting better than them. But do you think it's important to, for the school's sake, still send the JV team because of the two teams they're performing better?
Yeah, one thing I kind of question, who said that the JV team wasn't up to par, maybe time-wise, with the teams that they would face in the national competition?
Well, it just says here that when the coach, when he's looking at everything, it says regardless of which members, let's see, that's not the part, no. It's on page 6, it's the second to last paragraph. It says that the coach found that it wasn't that the JV was getting faster, it's that the varsity appeared to be slowing down. So if he picked the best people for the varsity team, he knows what he needs in order to compete. And if those guys are getting slower and JV is not getting faster, JV will not win the competition. I mean, that's a safe bet. But for the sake of the school and the morale of the school, and maybe even looking at it from that perspective, the morale of the JV team, would that help unify them to have them compete? I was very much against having the JV step up because I didn't think that was going to, as far as a winning perspective is concerned, they're not going to win that way. But is it important to do that for all those various reasons?
I think it might be because, the last thing the school really wants is this team going into an all-out brawl with each other because they lost the championship.
Which may happen.
And, sportsmanship is a big thing in these competitions, and we get that enough with a soccer game gone rogue if anyone's watched the World Cup.
People lose.
Yeah. So, really I think for the school's public image and for the sake of, for the sake of, this not, of a possible bad side effect happening later on and scarring them for years, having a real sportsman-like team represent them would be the ideal solution.
Well, it does say
very much
that
changes my take, so.
And it does say that there was a precedent for switching, and that the Cornell team did the switch, and both varsity and JV won Eastern Championships that year. So, to me, that seems like maybe the JV and the varsity times or teams aren't that much different in these national competitions, because obviously the Cornell team, their JV team, was able to win, even though they
at what level or at what time? I mean, was it 4 days before the big race? That's what I don't. I mean, I completely missed that line in my reading, so I'm glad you pointed that out. But
yeah, it
makes me wonder.
On page 9, under what to do.
Yeah, I found it, but I'm just trying to think, is when Cornell made that decision, back to the coach failing in his duties, did this coach recognize early on and flop it early enough to train the team, or was it the same situation where they were 4 days out? And
it says they faced a similar situation, made the switch. So I don't know how similar, but and I was kind of hesitant to research that one because I thought that might. But the coach would be able to research that, and that could maybe help him make the decision, looking at how other coaches had addressed this in the past. So maybe that is fair game to look at that.
Well, you have me rethinking my solution, so.
And then I think that also gives us the last option, the intervene to improve their performance. Or are we still on the first one?
We could talk about the middle one. I think they already defined that the middle one doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of showed that he put a varsity member onto a junior varsity team boat. He could make it row faster, but he couldn't necessarily improve the varsity boat.
Right.
And I was trying to think about this throughout the day. Our last option, intervening to improve the varsity boats in performance. And I think there's still some potential here, just because we have a week left before the finals and the competition. There's still got to be at least something he could do to get this team working together.
Did the results of the group meeting, though, kind of eliminate that as an option?
I'm beginning to think so, but I always like to try to figure out a last-ditch effort, but I don't think that's going to happen here.
Yeah, like I said, the only thing I could come up with was you guys can either kind of sabotage your whole season and not work together as a team, and if you do that, then you're going to go into the championships as JV, or you can pull it together as a team. And so if you do that, you've been successful and you go into the championship as varsity. That was kind of my thinking in suggesting that, was because I couldn't think of anything else he could do with 4 days.
Well, in the last comment by the team, it says, after several angry accusations and defensive outbursts, one of the men summed up very well what they were all feeling. He was sick of the situation and couldn't wait for the season to be over. I don't think they care about the race. I think the varsity team is done. I think you could put them in intense teamwork training for 4 days. You could do whatever you wanted. But if that's summing up the feelings that they were all feeling, they've already checked out. To me, the race is over for them. Even if you tried to motivate them, say, "Hey, look, we're going to have JV do it if you don't," they'll be like, "Fine, whatever." I kind of think they all checked out of the team a while back. I would like to see them improve on a personal level and even as a team level, but I don't think you're going to motivate them to compete in that race.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. There's merit
Okay.
has happened, but 4 days it just doesn't seem like would be, enough.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I've got to head off to my other part. So.
All right. Well, let's have our group leader give us the how things turned out.
Oh, I can go ahead and do that.
All right.
Okay. He said Coach P lined up the varsity crew into 4 pairs. He told them they were to wrestle, no punching for 90 seconds. There are no clear winners. Each man discovering that his opponent was just as strong and determined as he was, then had them change opponents and then wrestle again. And by the 3rd round, they were choosing their own opponents. One guy would point at another and say, "You," Coach P says, and finally one of the rowers started laughing and they all piled into a general brawl. Eventually someone said, "Coach, can we go row now?" And from then on the varsity boat flew.
Really?
Well, like I said, miracles could happen. Well,
A simple
Actually,
wrestling match resolved these issues? You got to be kidding me.
gives me a mission story from a couple of companions I knew that they hated each other, and mission president put them in a boxing ring together, and after they both had bloody noses, they were one of the best companionships I ever saw. So sometimes just releasing some aggression amongst the guys can help get things going, and I think that was a pretty good idea.
Did it say what the outcome was of the race?
just said the boat flew from that day on. So I'm going to assume it was pretty fast.
Hmm.
I think I probably will look up how the Army crew did in, what was it, 2001, 2002, something like that.
That's interesting. I never in a million years would have put any money into that.
No.
It's one of those good outside of the box ideas that sometimes works.
Well, my sister and I used to fight a lot. She's a little older than me. And my stepdad's resolution one night, because he was tired of us fighting, was to give us each a piece of uncooked spaghetti and to beat each other up with it. I don't know if you've ever tried to fight someone with a piece of uncooked spaghetti, but ironically enough, we fought a lot less after that. And I out of the box thinking, yeah, I guess that's how do you get months of anger and frustration and disappointment with a wrestling match? I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, the other thing too is.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I cut you off. You can continue.
The other thing too is we got to remember this coach has a PhD in psychology, so.
Oh, that's true.
It may not be so out of the box. You know, maybe he kind of had that as a last ditch method to pull them together.
And I think part of that effort going off of that is he knew all of these team members were about the same in strength. So when they're wrestling and neither one is overcoming the other, they're all getting a better feel for each other's strengths and weaknesses and can, I guess, essentially size up their team.
Or humble the over arrogant ones.
True.
I'm doing all the work. Well, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Well, are there any last thoughts or comments before we wrap this up?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, I do want to thank everyone here for your time and for coming together for this, and I guess we'll go ahead and start writing our case studies, and we will reconvene on Monday.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Do we know who's going to be the group leader for next week?
I think
It's on that list.
I know I have a list somewhere, but I think it might be at home.
It's me, because I thought it was gonna be this week, and then I was like, oh man, that's cool. I'm not the leader for next week.
I can't find my list. I think it was in my email.
Okay, group leader sign up. Here we go. Okay, I got it. Okay, yeah, so it's Paul. So it's Miguel next week, and then Maki. But if she doesn't show up, or he or she, then we'll just move it up, and I'll do it on the 30th. So, all right. So Miguel, you're up next week.
Alrighty.
All right. I will post this on the discussion board and put it in an email so everybody has the link.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.